My name is Abby Corkum, and I will be reading a poem called Potato by Jane Kenyon. Okay. Potato. In haste one evening while making dinner, I threw away a potato that was spoiled on one end. The rest was redeemable. In the yellow garbage pail, it became the consort of coffee grounds, banana skins, carrot peelings. I pitched it onto the compost, where steaming scraps and leaves return, like bodies over time to earth. When I flipped the fetid layers with a hay fork to air the pile, the potato turned up, unfailingly, as if to revile me. Looking plumper, firmer, resurrected, instead of disassembling. It seemed to grow until it might have made shepherd's pie for a whole hamlet, people who passed the day dropping trees, pumping gas, pinning hand-me-down baby clothes on the line. This poem, Potato by Jane Kenyon, can be found in one of Kenyon's poetry books called Constance. I'll refer back to that a little later, but Constance was published in 1993, just a few years before her death. So a little bit about Jane Kenyon and the poet's background. Kenyon was born on May 23, 1947, and died in 1995 at the age of 47. Her life was cut short due to her struggle with leukemia. She married a poet named Daniel Hall in 1972. And before I move on, I'll just pull up a picture of her so you won't be staring at the poem. The year she died, she was named Poet Laureate of the state of New Hampshire, and she published 4 poetry books in her lifetime. Constance, which I was talking about earlier, was published in 1993. Let Evening Come in 1990. The Boat of Quiet Hours in 1986, and From Room to Room in 1978. So Kenyon's work is often compared to that of John Keats's, who is an English romantic poet who wrote many famous odes. Gary Roberts, an essayist, once said, quote, "Like Keats, she attempts to redeem morbidity with a peculiar kind of gusto, one which speaks a quiet annihilation of self-identity through identification with benign things," unquote. I just thought this was a nice thing to insert here. It definitely explains a lot about her writing and about herself. A lot of Kenyon's work demanded the audience to think about their self more deeply. Note she too struggled with depression in her adult years. Another quote from John Timmerman's essay explains Kenyon's writing process. I thought this was very interesting to put in here. So I said, it said, quote, "Early in the writing process, Kenyon added words and images and tried out options and margins, providing the fullest portrait possible. In the later stages of revision, the process dramatically reversed. Kenyon crossed out words, details, and entire lines as she narrowed the focus to the essential." Unquote. This really showed how she made every poem her canvas, to blend and to mix and to erase and to draw her final product. So before I go ahead and read the poem one more time, I'd like to say that the purpose of this poem is to make people understand that things in life aren't infinite, or in other words, things in life are finite. In an article by Anne Ruderman, she talks about Jane Kenyon in the sense that, quote, "One of the most addictive things about Kenyon's poems is that they're never quite as simple as they seem," unquote. From this quote, I derived the basis of my thesis for Potato by Jane Kenyon. I believe the bigger picture here is that people don't always keep in mind or realize that many things on Earth aren't reusable. Everyone, not just the U.S., although it's very easy to point fingers at the U.S. because of its food and energy consumption reputation, but everyone around the world needs to realize that we have to make the most of what we have, or else we will unconsciously throw away perfectly viable food, like the potato talked about in Kenyon's poem. So, just a few more things before I proceed into the depths of the poem. In terms of rhyme scheme, there isn't any sort of rhyme scheme in this poem, but as for the type, this poem doesn't have a specific name. For example, it isn't a sonnet or limerick. At least I didn't find a specific name. It's rather a poem that has 4 stanzas. The first and the third stanzas contain 3 lines, and the second and fourth stanzas contain 6 lines. So there is a bit of symmetry there. Okay, I'm going to stop there and restart with another screencast before I head into a screencast for the next portion of my explication.